Welcome to the Black Male Impact. And we have as guest today, Dr. Shakir Abdullah.
Yes. You
Okay,
did
great,
well,
great.
Dr. Cross. Thank you. You did well.
Man, thanks for being here on the Black Male Impact. And I love what you're doing. I love the work that you have dedicated yourself to. And man, just welcome to the Black Male Impact.
Well, I appreciate the opportunity to be on the Black Male Impact. I think it's a great platform for us to really talk about how we as Black men are making a difference in the world. I'm grateful for the opportunity. I've been fortunate. I've been fortunate to have so many different experiences, and we'll have an opportunity, obviously, to talk about them here.
Okay, man, thank you. So before I get into the questions and just to ask you about how we can make a difference, I want you to share with the listeners what you are doing, what you have dedicated yourself to, so they can get an idea or a feel of who you are before we get into the conversation.
Absolutely, absolutely. So again, I'm Dr. Shakir Abdullah. I'm the principal principal consultant and founder of Practical Diversity Associates. It's a full service diversity, equity, and inclusion firm. How did I get to this place? I think that's part of the story, right? And part of the question. I grew up in Northeast Ohio in the United States. Had an opportunity to be exposed to a lot of different perspectives and backgrounds. And those backgrounds really kind of helped set the foundation for me because I got to meet so many different kind of people, had so many different experiences. Once I had a chance to go off to college at Wittenberg University in Springfield, Ohio, got to know more folks, got to know more perspectives, and really just appreciated that chance to learn about different perspectives, different identities, different cultures. And I started to internalize that, embody that. And I started working, recruiting diverse students. That was a big part of my professional career, was working in higher ed for more than 20 years. I worked in a bunch of different administrative roles. All of those things were related to the work. I was always working with diverse students, working with diverse perspectives. Decided after I got my master's degree at Ohio State, I decided that I wanted to get a PhD. And so I got my PhD in the from Auburn University. And what I studied was the multicultural competence of diversity services professionals. I was curious how other people came to this work. What did their path look like? I wanted to compare it to mine. And what I learned was that there are just so many different ways to approach this work. The number one factor, the most important thing, is that you have a desire to learn and help folks who are different or similar to you. That was the research that I did for my dissertation. And this is just the work that I've been able to do for most of my career. I mean, I'm always a student. I'm always trying to learn. And so what I do now is I help other folks on their diversity, equity, and inclusion goals. So I'm helping with strategic planning. If you've got an organization and you want to make sure that your organization is connected to the communities that you serve, if you want to build on your skills, the skills that allow you to work with diverse communities, those are some of the things that I provide. I provide a diversity, equity, and inclusion coaching service. So if you're a new professional in this space, then I help coach you and help you figure out, how do we have some of those tough conversations before you get in front of a larger audience. In addition to that, I'm also open to different keynote speaking opportunities. And so this has just been really a great opportunity for me. I started my company 11 years ago, and I've been doing it part-time for all those years. And just in this past year, I've gone full-time and really just stepped out and said, hey, let me see what I can do. How can I continue to help other folks, help other businesses, and help people reach their goals as it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion. And for some people, they don't know where to start, and that's okay. My goal in my firm, we're designed to work with folks to help establish those goals so that they can know about their outcomes and key results as it relates to diversity, equity, and inclusion.
Yes, and I realize that has been not say a new topic, but for the past 2 or 3 years, it has been really talked about a lot because companies, organizations realize how important it is to make sure they are serving the people that's working for them. And not everyone knows how to be able to make sure their environment is conducive to all people that they are serving, especially if those individuals are already, working for them, because people want to feel comfortable in their workspace. And when they're comfortable, they tend to do better work. And if you're paying someone, you want them to do the best work. So I really appreciate what you're doing and your commitment to helping organizations to be able to be of best service to those that are helping them to achieve their goal. And I think that is really important, because at times I know, even as a Black male, I know sometimes, not all organizations know how to be able to make sure the environment, or just for Black people on the whole, or people of color, just on a whole, to make sure the environment is welcoming and that everyone feels safe in their workspace. So, man, I really appreciate the work that you're doing.
Absolutely.
Okay, so I'm just going to get straight into the questions,
Mhm.
and so we can start off this conversation, because again, the goal is to inspire positive change, and that's what you are committed to. But we just want the listeners to get it from a male perspective who is out there from work that may be different, and experience, because our experience also shape how we go about making our decisions in life. So my first question to you is, what is the mindset that it takes to make a positive impact?
I think for me, it's important to understand that all of my success is the result of everyone who's poured something into me. I think about my teachers. I think about absolutely my parents. I think about my community, the places that I've lived, all the folks that I've worked with, and the people who helped me out along the journey. So for me, I feel like I owe a debt, right? I owe a debt of service, a debt of gratitude. And so because of that, that's why I do this work, because I remember folks who did it for me. I remember the folks who opened doors and created pathways and made me feel welcomed and helped me to understand everything that was going on, and really helped me to understand how to move as a Black man in this society. I've got some of those different stereotypes. I'm a former athlete. I'm not a tiny guy. And so when I walk around, I have a presence, right? When I talk, I have a presence, I have an impact, and I have to understand what that impact means to everybody that I'm around. And so I got that from learning, right? I watched my father, I watched my stepfather, I watched how they moved in this world as larger Black men who were assertive and firm and clear on who they are in terms of their principles. All the folks who did these things, all these folks who role modeled that for me, I owe them a debt. And so for me to play small, for me to not show up, I think it does a disservice to them. And so for me, it's, I've got a loan from God to be here on this earth. And so I have to repay that loan, right? I have to repay that loan by giving back, by showing up, by being my authentic self, and by modeling what it means for the next generation. I have two sons and two daughters as well, but they see me. And when it's their time to be in the spotlight, when it's their time to lead, they're going to look to my leadership first, right? And so I'm always thoughtful about that. That's the mindset I think you have to have. You have to have a mindset that you owe folks, the folks who came before you and the folks who are coming behind you. You owe it to them to show up. You owe it to them to be yourself, to be engaged, and you understand that it's a privilege, right? I've been super privileged, right? Super successful, different opportunities. I've had so many doors open for me. I've served as vice presidents of universities, assistant vice presidents, program directors, I've had so many different opportunities. I've had a chance to travel, be engaged, be in front of audiences. And so when I get up there, when I do this work, I have to make sure that I show up completely, and I have to show up in a way that's impactful. I have to empower others to be their best selves, because if I'm not, fully asserting or fully stepping into my superpowers, then other folks don't think that they can do it, right? And so for me, I have to model it, and really the mindset is just that I owe it to the world, I owe it to the universe to make sure that I am making a difference, and that I'm showing up in ways that are impactful, in ways that are meaningful every time I have the opportunity.
And I think, man, that is important as a Black male to make sure we don't minimize ourselves to for any reason at all. We need to show up in our authentic self and be who we are and be okay with being in our authentic self and understand that how we live, we are being an example for those who are coming behind us. But I like what you said. We owe a debt to those people who have paved the way, and it would be of a disservice to come and be less than who we know we are in this world. Because again, we're not only living for us, we are living for those who are coming behind us. So I really appreciate that. And that's a great reminder as we go forward, because not everybody will be as big, 6 feet and stuff like that, but we need to still make sure our presence are felt and be okay to stand firm on what we believe and what we know will make a difference. So I really appreciate that perspective, because to make a positive impact, you
Absolutely.
want to be yourself. You want to be the best version of yourself. And sometimes, that may cause others to be intimidated
Right.
by you as an individual, but you still have to be okay. It doesn't make sense you minimize yourself just because others may not feel comfortable. You want to be the best version of yourself every time so you can inspire, especially those who are coming behind you. And sometimes gives others a different perspective than what they have held of who you are, stuff like that. So it's always great to be the best version of yourself. So what advice do you have for the men listening and
Mhm.
how they can play a role in creating positive change?
So I think the first piece of advice is absolutely you have to show up, right? And when you show up, I mean, you don't walk around like a tyrant on the earth, like everybody owes you a debt. That's not it. You just show up and then you take a look, right? You have to do an assessment. What's happening? What do I see? What's missing? You can actually look at yourself. Like, what did I need when I was in that position? What did I need when I was that age? What did I need? And then you try to be what you needed. You try to be that resource that is out there. I think it's important if you're trying to make a change, you have to think about what is your motivation? Is your motivation to prove someone wrong? I know sometimes I was motivated by that. People
Yeah.
told me about things that I couldn't do. People attributed my success to luck or accident. And for me, I'm like, okay, I've got to prove them wrong. But at the same time, I'm proving myself right. And I'm saying that, hey, this is what I've earned. And I'm going to prove it every day that I've earned these different opportunities, right? Um, Remember your why. What is your reason? What is your reason for wanting to make a difference and wanting to make an impact? And I think you have to remember that every day, because sometimes you are influential, you get into a position of success and you let it go to your head and you
Yeah.
forget what got you there. You forget why you're there. And so you need to go back to your why on a regular basis. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why are you showing up in this particular way? Why are you dressing this way? Why are you speaking? Remember your why. And if you remember your why, you stay centered, you stay focused, then you're going to stay on the path. And I talked about, again, owing a debt to folks. The way that you make a change is by being thoughtful about that, right? Be thoughtful about who came before you, right? What would your ancestors think about what you're doing now, right? And what would your ancestors need? What did they need? What was missing from their experience. So if you can be thoughtful about that, then you can walk in and then you can make positive change. And the reality is, when you see something, say something, right? If you hate it, okay, let's make a change, right? You can change it with your hand. Get out there and do something. If you can't change it with your hand, speak out against it. Speak out to support it, right? And if you can't do that, then at least hate it and say, okay, I'm gonna work silently towards this goal, towards this process, and towards making sure that this change is happening. And it's just interesting as we talk about these things. And some people think, well, I just have to play my role. I have to just go along. I have to get along. No, you don't. You can actually change things that you want to change, right? You want to be able to understand what you can change and then go ahead and do it. And sometimes it's small incremental change. And sometimes it's big change, but not every one of us are going to be, elected president of the United States. Not every one of us is going to be worldwide and have a platform like you do, Dr. Cross, but we all can make a difference in our spaces, right? And if we first walk in, we remember our why, and we remember that we are change agents, then we can get it done.
And as you were listing the ways that we can make a difference and make create change, do it, speak up, and all those different parts. But one thing that I would add, sometimes even if you're not the person who will speak up or go out there and act on your own, you can join those people who are doing the things that you want to see change. Because sometimes, not everybody is going to be at the forefront, but you can always join in with someone that's doing the work that you want to see happen, the change that you want to see as we think about making a difference in the world, because everybody don't have to be at the front.
Right.
Some of us, we can join with others who are doing the same work, who want to see the change that we want to see and support that work. So from a collective standpoint, more can be accomplished by supporting others. But I do believe in creating change. We have to somewhat take ownership and be a part of that change. If it's going to be on an individual level or a collective level, we must be willing to play our part in creating the change that we want to see. So, how can we as Black men help to change the narrative today? And you can speak from whichever perspective of the narrative that you think we need to change.
I think programs like this, the opportunity to kind of talk and hear different perspectives and hear about different folks who have been successful, we have to take control of our story, right? We have to be our storytellers. I think far too often there's a single story being told, right, about who Black men are. But we are so much more than that, right? We are those things, but we are this too, right? And I think that's important for us to be thoughtful. How do we change the narrative? We got to keep being successful, right? We have to show up in all the places that we exist, and we have to thrive. We have to show up and we have to be engaged. We have to help folks understand that, hey, we're here, we've got perspectives, we get ideas. Our success is our best way to keep changing the narrative, right? Telling our story, making sure that you are prioritizing your health, right? Because if we're not here, we don't have the opportunity to continue to change the narrative, right? Surround yourself with like-minded people. I think about my group of friends, the folks that I grew up with, my folks that I went to college with, some of my fraternity brothers. I think about those folks, and they challenge me every day to be my best. I have one brother that I call every week. We have the same standing meeting. We're checking in. Hey, how's everything going when you're thinking about entrepreneurship, right? We keep each other on task. I have another brother who's calling me and said, hey, where you at with your progress? Did you do this? Did you do that? Those are the things that help me to thrive. We're talking about health, staying engaged. I try to run regularly. For me, it's like I'm a man of a certain age, so I've got to make sure I keep up with my health. Played in a flag football league game last night, and for me, I'm probably the oldest one out there, but it's what I have to do to stay engaged. It's what I have to do to make sure that I'm fit, because if we're not here, if we're not prioritizing our health, then we can't thrive. I also want to remind us to prioritize our leisure. There's a group that I follow on social media. It's called Earn Your Leisure, right? You earn your leisure by doing your work first and doing all those things. But let's make sure we get to that point where we can actually take our leisure, because for so long, the narrative has been much of a John Henry narrative, right? Where we work ourselves to death just to prove folks wrong, prove that we can outdo the machine. We don't have to be John Henry. We don't have to do that. We need to make sure that we enjoy our life while we're here. We work for the good of this world and the good of the hereafter, right? We have to make sure we have that piece together and enjoy ourselves a bit, right? That's what we have to do. Make sure we're a valuable resource. When people reach out, make sure we reach back. We can't be so arrogant about our own success and our own opportunities that we forget that we're only here because someone else showed us the pathway, right? Even if they didn't show us directly, we watched them from afar, or someone told us their story and said, oh, I think I can do that. I think I would like to do that. Right. So these are some of the things that help change the narrative, right? All of these things, living our lives, being engaged, being healthy, being happy, and really just telling the story. We don't tell the story enough. We don't have the platforms. We don't own the networks. We don't own the leagues. We might own a record label or something like that. But what is the message that's coming out? We have to control those messages. And we have to also understand that, hey, not all of us are thriving. Not all of us are doing the best that we can. We acknowledge that, and then we embrace those folks and say, hey, how can I help you be better? Right. What can a brother do for me? Right. There was a song that was out years ago, and that was one of the lyrics. It's like, what can a brother do for me? And it says, you can help me be the best man that I can be. Right. And I think that's what we have to do. We have to continue to help our brothers be the best men that they can be, and do what we can to help. That's not always money, but it's not always time, but money and time are helpful, but an ear to listen, right? We need to make sure we're taking advantage of counseling resources, right? Some of us have been through trauma that we haven't worked through. We got to do that in order for us to thrive. I was talking to my brother about counseling and working through that. And it was really interesting to me because this was his journey, right? His journey was not the same as my journey or someone else's journey, but he's to a point where he's like, hey, I can tell you about what I'm doing and how this is helping me. So all of these things are important. So I'm talking about physical health, I'm talking about mental health, talking about enjoying ourselves and enjoying our lives. As we do that, it helps us to shift the narrative because we're here longer. We're here for our grandchildren, great grandchildren. We become the ancestors that the young folks are listening to, and we get to tell our stories through platforms like this, because all of those things are going to help to shift the narrative about who Black men are.
Well, just to summarize what you just said, I really appreciate those points, the mental health and the physical health. Because if we're going to be of our best self, our mental health is important and our physical health is important. There are other parts that can be pulled from what you just shared, the emotional part, because when we're healthy, when we have be able to deal with what we're doing, the emotional health, the spiritual health and stuff like that will play a role. But one thing that we sometimes overlook as Black men is our mental health and also our physical health. We have to take care of ourselves if we're going to do the things that we want to do on the levels that we want to do them. Those are important. So, but I'm going to, what or who has influenced you or inspired you to pursue the path that you're on? I know you're in diversity and inclusion now, but I know you have been working in the education space. But who inspired or influenced you to be on your journey?
Absolutely. That's a great question. For me, family has been a huge influence on me. I go back and I think my mother was my first teacher, literally, and really, like, for pre-kindergarten and kindergarten, she was my first teacher, right? And so that was the beginning for me in terms of getting on this journey and understanding the path, right? I never knew what it was going to look like. I just was kind of following the steps. My father was a huge influence in terms of who I became and how I engage and how I interact. My stepfather was also a huge influence. So I had these two impactful Black men as mentors and role models for the majority of my young life. I didn't always have to look external for role models or for perspectives. And it wasn't until I got to college and started interacting with more Black men, successful Black men, that I got to add additional role models really to help me figure out the path, right? And these are the folks who helped influence me. I think about a guy I always mention whenever I have a chance, Chris Thompson, who opened the door for me. When I was in college, I worked with him and learned the art of working with diversity and understanding the impact of that, right? He really impacted my life. And so I always think about Chris Thompson and folks like Daryl Peel, so many other folks who who inspire me. I also think about my community. I grew up in Akron and Canton, Ohio, and I remember, being in that space. There was so much going on. I learned from a lot of folks. I engaged with folks from different cultures and different perspectives. All of this kind of helped shape me, right? My faith has helped shape me. I've had a chance to interact with other folks, and I understand the importance of service, right? And understanding that none of us have truly believed until what I want for myself is what I want for my brothers and sisters. So these are the things that influence me. My wife and kids. I remember working on my PhD, and we were, having children and all that stuff. And I remember saying the PhD was an additional child because of the amount of time it took to birth and put that together. But really, the amount of time that my wife let me have to get that done. I mean, I couldn't have done it without her, right? And I couldn't have done it without her sacrifice, right? She had to do more while I was doing that work and while I was a bit absent in the home. So I recognize that. And those are some of the things that help to influence me. I talked earlier about my peer influence, right? My guys, those are the folks who help to influence me and help inspire me to do the work. And obviously, as a blue collar scholar, I consider myself a blue collar scholar, somebody who I'm not all the way in academia, but I'm also, from not from that culture, right? Because my parents didn't graduate from college, but I had an opportunity to do that and kind of set a path. So I consider myself a blue collar scholar. So I respect the researchers. I respect the folks who have done this work ahead of time. I read it and I'm inspired by it. I'm influenced by it. I think about guys like Dr. Muhammad Khalifa, who does culturally responsive school leadership, and I'm looking at his work and I'm, learning from his work. And there's so many folks that help to influence me, but obviously we don't have all the time to name those folks. But the work that they've done has inspired me, and all those folks who I've encountered along the way have inspired me to really do this work and to pursue this path. I mean, I think about my good friend Brian May, who's been an entrepreneur for the better part of the last 2 decades, and he's become successful, and he's given me advice and helped me to say, hey, you can do it, but these are some things you have to consider, and these are some other things. So I'm grateful to all those folks who have inspired me, especially to my family and friends who continue to inspire me.
Well, just to kind of summarize what you said, I believe you have really demonstrated what it's like to be open to receive from others
Mhm.
who are there to allow you to be the best version of yourself and to pour into you. And I think as men, as we continue on this journey to make a difference, being open to receiving what others are able to share with us is important when we are talking about being the best version of ourselves and to make positive change.
No.
I think that is important, to be open to receive the support from others, because all those individuals that you have mentioned that have paved the way, that have allowed you to, because you could have go about it differently,
Yeah.
but you allow those people who are there in your life to really give you that space or help to create that space so you could become the person you are today. And at times that's what makes a difference, just to for us to acknowledge the people who are there and their contribution, and how it doesn't matter even the level of contribution, but whatever the contribution is and how beneficial it can be to us, reaching our goal. And I think that is really important and a great reminder
Yeah.
for us all to realize that the people around us do play a part in what we achieve, and to realize they're actually playing a role in us becoming a better version of ourselves. And I
Yeah.
think that's a good rate to look at those great individuals that help in shaping who you are today. Yeah. So, what is your perspective on the current climate of Black men in society today?
We are in an interesting space when we think about the perceptions of Black men. We have more platforms than ever, whether it's social media, whether it's music, sports. But I think we're in a unique position when we think about the perception of Black men right now. There are so many different avenues to learn about Black men, to see Black men. Social media is huge. I'm on social media, but when I'm on social media, I'm trying to change the narrative. I'm trying to make sure people see what it's like as me talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion. You might see me traveling, you might see me cooking, you might see me, joking around, having a good time. I'm trying to help people understand that we are all things that all people are, right? We're happy, excited, we're angry, we're frustrated, we're optimistic, we're engaged, we're leaders in our community, we're leaders around the world. We are so many things, and I think it's important for us to show the broadest perspective possible of who Black men are. We're not just one thing, and I think that's so important. I think about the importance of Black male teachers, right? I went through all my K-12. I had, I'll say, a half a Black man teaching me K through 12. And I say that not because of his race, but because the course he taught was only a half semester, half term course, right? I had one Black male instructor. That can be impactful if young boys don't see Black males in the classroom. They don't think school is a place for them because they're not there, right? And so I was fortunate. I had a Black male principal in high school. He was very influential, gave me some different opportunities. So stuff like that helps, right? We have to be visible. We have to make sure we can show up and be seen on as many platforms as possible, because that helps to shift the narrative, because we know the narrative has been a single story for so long, right? And then as the narrative shifted, it just became a different single story, right? We never have been able to see the breadth and the depth of who Black men are. So I'm excited about where we are now, because I think platforms like yours, Dr. Cross, and so many others help us to shift that narrative in terms of who Black men are.
Yes, and I appreciate that. Thank you. And what you said is really important, where we take control of the narrative. We don't allow others to tell our story. We need to take control and share the depth and breadth of what we're doing and the impact that we're having. And so we can counter the negative or the falsifications when it comes to us as Black men. So that's a great perspective to remember as we go forward in creating change, and to be the difference that we want to see in society, because society is going to tell us who they want us to think we are.
Right.
But we have to take control of that story now more than ever, to control more of the narrative, and be willing to share who we are as Black men, and the impact that we are making, and the difference that we are making, and just to be okay with letting ourselves be seen. And because that's one thing I don't think, well, now it's a little bit different, with social media, but I think we are now becoming a bit more bolder, I should say, with sharing the things that we're doing, because now we have the social media to kind of help us to put more positive images out there. I remember at one point when a few years ago, when they started creating this suit stuff with Black men
Mm.
online, it just went viral. Everybody was talking about it. So because they haven't seen us in that light, and to start a movement like that, I think it really resonates with a lot of people, because they wanted to see themselves,
Yeah.
and others want to see us in a different light than what society have been talking about when it comes to us. But so what change do you want to see in general amongst Black men? And you may have touched on this, so just to give an insight of what change you'd like to see in general when it comes to Black men.
Yeah, no, I did. I think I talked about this earlier because for
Yeah,
me, I'm really interested in us doing better in terms of improving our health because if we, we can't make a difference if we aren't here, right?
yeah,
So we work on our health and make sure that we can raise our life expectancy. Black males have the lowest life expectancy in the United States. We need to shift that, right? And then I think another piece too is we have to go back and remember that we are allowed to correct and drive and direct young people. I think we have maybe gotten out of that habit and just thrown our hands up and say, hey, whatever they do is what they're going to do. And that's not the way to be. We can't be afraid of the youth. We can't be afraid of young people. I live in Atlanta, Georgia, and just recently we've had some tragedies with some young people, young as 12, 15 years old. And it just reminded me that we can't be afraid to correct young people when we see them going down a path that's not the right one, right? I remember growing up in a community. I was a little boy. I had left the house and my father he's a retired firefighter. He had gone to work and I was looking for him. I left the house, walked out the house. Somebody in the community saw me like, "What are you doing?" He spanked me and sent me home, right? And I appreciated that because that was the community looking out for me. And so it was a lesson like, okay, I need to be thoughtful about going outside and walking, doing these things without permission and stuff like that. But that was the village loving me, right? And there's a saying, right? The child that doesn't feel the warmth of the village will burn it down to feel the warmth or something like that. But
yeah.
the bottom line is we have to embrace our young people, correct them, guide them, and not be afraid to do that. And I think we have to figure out different ways to do it, right? Everybody can't be preachy. Everybody can't be, that stern-faced authoritarian or anything like that. I mean, it's just, hey, young blood, won't you
That's
think
right.
about that before you do that, right? There's different ways of doing it. And I think we have to figure out those multiple ways and make sure we're correcting our young people before they start to burn the village down and feel its warmth.
Well, and I think, man, that is worth even repeating.
Mhm.
We have to be that guide for the next generation.
Absolutely.
And it's not really something that seems to be that's practicing right now in today's society. Because as you mentioned, people may be thinking more so out of fear, these young people are not going to receive someone that they don't know correcting them and stuff like that, because things are crazy today.
Yeah.
But in the older generation, it was like the village played a role in cultivating the young people, especially in their communities and stuff like that. But even if we don't, we have to kind of approach it in a way where we still try to make some corrections if we can, and try to understand the young people where they
Mm.
are and some of their challenges, and still be willing to reach out, because even though they may need the support and help, they may not reach out to us. And sometimes we have to understand and that they may be looking at us differently, and
Mhm.
reach out to them, let them know that we are here to help them to become the best they can be. And that's one thing as men we can do.
Yeah.
Don't wait for the next generation to reach out to us for mentorship, for guidance, but offer the guidance and mentorship wherever we can, to help them to see themselves even through us. I know you mentioned that you had Black male teachers, but there are young people that they're in a space that they may not really get to experience a Black male role model.
Absolutely.
So it's important that we step up and be the guide and mentor, our mentors to young people as much as we possibly can. And if we're talking about changing, creating a positive environment for the next generation, I think that is important. What was a pivotal moment in your life?
And so I have a couple of them. I'll focus on So the most pivotal moment, it was a few moments. I had a chance to travel abroad, right? Get out of the United States and see the rest of the world. I spent some time in the Dominican Republic. People thought I was Dominican. I was confused. I'm a black man. I just didn't know much about the world. I had a chance to spend a summer in Europe researching and doing work while I was in graduate school. And then I also had a chance to go to Egypt, right? And
Wow.
so this was a chance for me to get to the African continent and to really experience what that was like. And I think that those moments were pretty life changing for me because I had to shift the way that I thought about myself. I had to shift the way that I thought about the world. And I recommend it to anybody who wants to grow. Get out of your comfort zone, go spend some time someplace else. And it's going to shift your understanding of yourself. It's going to shift your understanding of the United States, and it also shifts your understanding of what the possibilities could be. So for me, those were pretty significant. And then I think the most pivotal moment for me was getting married, right? Marrying my wife helped me to settle down as a man and find so much more time for the things that were important in terms of research, focus on work and life and family, all that good stuff. So those were some pivotal moments for me, and I recommend it to anybody, right? Because those traveling experiences helped me to see the rest of the world. Getting married, finding a spouse was super critical for me in terms of continuing to develop my identity and to grow as an individual. You think that getting married or you're focused on the couples, but I was able to focus and grow personally, within my marriage. And I really encourage folks, find that partner that's going to balance you, that is going to encourage you to be the best that you can be. And I think for Black men, there's often an image that we are not good husbands and we're not engaged in that way. So those are some pivotal things I'd highlight.
And that's those are important, especially the travel and your spouse and the relationships and stuff like that. That can really play a pivotal role, and how important it is, because gaining new perspective and being a space where you can develop, can really play a critical piece in your own development and how you show up in the world.
Absolutely.
So those are really important as individuals, learning from the spaces that we go to
Mhm.
and the relationships that we're in can help us to become who we are, from seeing things from a different perspective, but be intentional about what we choose to do as we think about creating change and become the best version of ourselves. What life lesson have you learned late in life
Yeah.
that you think is important for this current generation to know? Or
Yeah, and they probably hear this a lot, but invest your money and manage your money well as a young person, and it will allow you to do whatever you want as you get older.
yeah,
That was something that I didn't learn as a young person. I mean, I've had different opportunities, different jobs, and things like that, and missed out on different investment opportunities and so many different things. Yeah, I did make some good decisions, right? I bought my first house at like 26, right? And that was really, really important in terms of opening up some doors and opportunities for me. But I would tell young people, invest your money. Uh, and when I say invest, be thoughtful, right? I'm not a certified financial planner or anything like that, but it's important that you work with someone who can help you with that, right? Whether you're investing in stocks, whether you're investing in real estate, whether you're investing in other commodities, it is really, really critical that you do it early and that you do it often, right? It can be a small amount, but if you do it regularly, it's going to make a difference. And I would really, really encourage folks to do that as soon as you get your hands on a couple dollars, right? I started working when I was 14 years old, and I've been, working ever since. Had I taken a small portion of all my earnings over the course of those years, I would be in a much better place financially, and it allows you to write your own ticket and get some of those experiences like traveling and being able to work for yourself and set your own schedule and stuff like that. So that would be the advice that I learned late that I would really, really encourage folks to do early, and it can make a difference.
Yeah, and no, that's a valid point. Investing or investment and stuff like that, because that's something that sometimes we don't hear a lot in our community.
Yeah.
And to learn that early can really make a difference. As you mentioned, from a financial standpoint, it could maybe put you in a different position right now, but a lot of times it's not something that is covered in our community. And if you don't learn it when in the early parts of your journey, it's something that you may have to learn on your own.
Right.
And sometimes it's by accident where it may be because of bad or mismanagement of
Yes.
our own money.
Yes.
We end up in a space where we now have to learn how to invest, how to manage our money. So I think that is really a valid point, an important reminder to us all. So I want to ask this question before I ask the final question.
Okay.
And I know you mentioned it in the beginning, but where can the listeners find you and support the great work that you're doing? Because I think it's important. We all need support. So please share where the listeners can find your work and support the work that you're doing.
No, I appreciate that. You can find me at www.pracdiv.com. So it's pracdiv.com, short for Practical Diversity. You can go there. You can find my company and all that information. I'm on Instagram, Shaq1906, so SHAK 1906. And I'm also on TikTok. I never thought I would join TikTok, but it's a good opportunity to have short messages and share with folks. It's Dr. period dash Shakir SHAKEER dash Abdullah ABDULLAH. That's long, but it's on TikTok. You can find me on there. And again, I'm just they're here. My company's here to help you all with professional development, speaking opportunities, training, coaching, and strategic planning around diversity, equity, and inclusion goals. And I'm excited to be able to help folks and to be in the position, because I know, like you mentioned earlier, there are workplaces that struggle with this. And my goal is just to help folks thrive, right? And help folks have the knowledge, skills, and awareness to be able to work with folks who are different from them, or to work with folks who are similar to them.
Okay. Yes. Yes. And I'll definitely put a link somewhere in the description area so they can find you and find the work that you're doing, because I believe it's important work. And again, I will stress this, that it doesn't matter who we are or what we're doing or how successful we are, we're still going to need the support of others on this journey to continue to do the work that we believe matters and makes a difference. So my final question to you is, what impact do you want to have on the world?
It's a really good question. And I think for me, the impact that I want to make is just that I want to make sure that I leave a legacy that people remember me, and they don't just remember me and mention my name, but they also mention my name in their prayers, right? Because I hope that I've made that kind of impact on folks, so that they say that they are appreciative of their interaction or their connection with me when I was here on this earth. So I think that would be the legacy that I hope to leave.
Man, thank you. And well, helping people to deal with people, that in itself is a great impact, because at times, being that we're from different environments, we have different experiences.
Yeah.
It can be different at times, how we go about dealing with others, being that our experiences are different. So learning how to better deal with others, I believe it's something that we will remember, because if you help me to better deal with someone that I don't know, at some point when I'm talking about how I get past that barrier, that's in itself is a great legacy, man. So, Dr. Abdullah, man, I thank you for joining here on the Black Male Impact, and I wish all the best to the work that you're doing and the impact that you're having in the world.
So, Dr. Cross, I really appreciate the opportunity to be on Black Male Impact with you. I appreciate the work that you're doing, and I'm excited for the young folks and the older folks who follow you to really benefit from this work. So thank you again.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you very much for being here.
You're very welcome.